Hi everyone, and welcome to the Knit California channel. My name is Leslie. I'm Knit California here on YouTube and also over on Instagram and TikTok. And today I'm going to be reorganizing my stash and giving you some tips on how to refresh your yarn collection. I have been in a bit of a knitting slump, it feels like, the last couple of weeks, and I do think this is relatively common as we're kind of in the middle of winter, mid-February. It feels like spring isn't coming very soon. At least where I live, it's been raining and cloudy a lot, and I do think this is pretty common this time of year. And one way that I know kind of helps me to get out of a slump and to get more re-energized, especially in my crafting and in my knitting, is to spend some time with my yarn stash. You can see it behind me here, and that's what I'm going to be doing today. Spending time with your yarn stash can look a little bit different from person to person, or depending on what mood you're in. You could, sit in front of it and pull out your favorite skeins. You could start dreaming up new project ideas. You can pull yarn out and put together your favorite or maybe some unexpected color combinations. Or what I'm going to be doing today excuse me. Or what I'm going to be doing today, which is actually reorganizing my whole shelf system. This is the second video in my Spring Cleaning Your Yarn Stash series. The first video, which is already live, is about how to destash yarn, and that process kind of goes hand in hand with what we're going to be doing today. When I pull yarn out and when I start to organize my stash, I think one of the natural processes, one of the natural steps, is to look at the skeins and maybe find some that I want to pull out of my stash and that I may want to get rid of. That's where that destashing piece comes in, and I wanted to make sure that I gave that to you before we actually did the whole reorganizing piece. That's what today's video is, the reorganization. And then in the third video in this series, I'm going to talk to you and give you some tips about how to intentionally build up your yarn stash into something that you really love. So if you're new around here and want to stick around for the third video in the series, please make sure you hit that subscribe button. I also post weekly podcast episodes where I talk about my knitting projects, finished objects, yarn acquisitions, all of the things that normally get talked about during knitting podcast episodes. So if you're interested in those, that's definitely something to stick around for. Okay, I'm gonna show you, we're gonna turn this into a little bit more vlog style video. I'm gonna get up and show you the current state of my yarn stash. There's a lot here on the floor that you cannot see, as well as on the top here. And then we're gonna get into literally pulling everything out and reorganizing the cubbies and the categories that I keep my yarn in. While I'm doing all of this, I'm gonna be talking you through some tips for reorganizing your own yarn stash and just for refreshing in general your yarn collection. So let's get into it. Okay, so this is the current state and what we're working with. Let's start with what's on top here. I have a ton of single skeins, some gifted yarn, as well as some larger hanks that I really just have not found a place for. There's some full cakes and some yarn scraps in here. I would really love to get at least all of these skeins into the cubbies instead of just piling them up on top here. So that's gonna be one of my goals. Then I really have yarn the cubbies were originally categorized by, this was all of my fall and winter knitting plan skeins. Sort of is still true, but not really. This was sweater quantities, still mostly sweater quantities. This was 3 skein sets plus sweater quantities. This was also 3 skein sets plus sweater quantities and is now just a mishmash. This is all my fuzzy yarn, mohair, surrey, truffle cashmere. There's some boucle in there. This was single skeins, and then the two bottom, I guess here you go. Here's a look at the floor that we're also going to be taking care of. The two bottom cubbies, one was my summer yarns, which I would actually love to move all of that up a little bit. And then down here is my scrap yarns, which I actually want to pull all of this out so that I have a full another cubby for like all of this yarn. I have two of these vinyl bags. This is what they look like. Whoops. This is what they look like when they're full. Hey, Lily Pup. And so I'm going to be putting all of my scrap yarn, I think will fit in one of the bags. And then if I have more yarn that I just want to get out of my stash, out of the cubbies, into a bag that I don't think, like I use these bags, for example, this yarn I want to keep, but I know I'm not going to use it like anytime soon. And it's got all my mini skeins in it. I might set up a bag just for mini skeins. That's what I've been using these bags for. There's another one back there as well. I also have some room in a couple of these drawers. Whoops. Sneak peek, you've never seen this before. So that's an option as well. Okay, let me come back over here and just talk to you about what's on the floor here. Most of these are projects, like active projects. There's some stationery, stickers and stuff. This whole bag is mostly yarn to be destashed. There is some fiber in here for my upcoming spinning journey that I have yet to begin. And so I want to put that, I think, in the dresser over there. But I need to, like, actually post all of this yarn for destash. And I need to figure out a better system for my current projects, project bags, and like a place to put them. So that's what we're working with. It's hard to get it all in frame. I'm gonna start by pulling everything off of the floor so I can see the full cubby, and pulling up the stuff from on top, pulling out the stuff from up top. And then we're gonna pull out everything from all of the cubbies. It's gonna be so fun. Okay, so these are all of my current projects, and I kind of want to just like get them out of the way. I don't fully know the solution yet for where I want to put them, but while I'm dealing with all of the yarn, I don't really want them on the bed because they're just gonna get in my way. So I'm actually gonna move them off camera somewhere over here, and we'll deal with them later. Okay, so this is my destash bag. I'm going to keep this nearby, and as I'm like emptying yarn out, if I come across any that I think I may want to destash, I'm gonna chuck it in this bag, and then I'm gonna have to go through this bag probably at a separate time. I don't think I'll have enough energy to do all of it today, but maybe a little bit tomorrow or just in the weeks to come. The dogs are really confused as to what we're doing. But okay, look, the floor is clear now and we can actually see these bottom cubbies, although I'm going to be pulling all of it out. So here's a before look at the cubbies. A tip for you if you're feeling overwhelmed by doing all of your yarn stash at the same time is to pull out your yarn cubby by cubby, shelf by shelf, basket by basket, and just do it one cubby, one shelf, one basket at a time. This way you can more easily see all of the yarn that you have in that one section. You can hopefully easily make decisions on whether or not to keep a yarn versus destash a yarn, and it'll just be a little bit more manageable if you're feeling too overwhelmed by doing all of it at one time. All right, my scrap bag is kind of a mess, but like, what else do we expect from a scrap bag? A couple of things that were in here are like full sock balls, one completed sock. I did not knit the second one yet, question mark, a mini skein, and all of this like thread yarn from Knit Collage, which I'm pretty sure I have another stash of this somewhere, maybe in my Destash bag. I'm not sure. I'm gonna need to find where the rest of this is. But okay, my two bottom cubbies are empty, my summer yarns and my scrap yarns. My summer yarns, I know I want to move up to the top because I'm getting ready, I'm gearing up. Spring, summer are coming. I'm filming this at the end of February 2024. And so I know that I want to like be focused a little bit more on my spring yarns, my like non 100% wool yarns. So I'm gonna move them up to the top so that I can see them easier, and we're gonna move basically the rest of this down and change up the cubbies a bit. So I think I'm going to empty one of the top ones first, and then I'm gonna put all my summer yarn in just to kind of like rotate it, get it off the bed, out of the way. And because I know I'm going to put all of the summer yarn together in one cubby. And that is my summer yarn stash. Do I want to keep this? I don't know if it's a great color for me. I think it makes me look red. Putting this in the maybe pile. This is such a great exercise to go through if you like want to get inspired by your yarn again, because even just pulling like one cubby of skeins out, I'm like, oh my gosh, I want to cast this on, like, or what can I find? What can I like hold this suri with to like make a gorgeous sweater? Like, I'm already feeling really inspired. Okay, here's my new summer yarn cubby. It's not like perfect. I don't really like the look of these balls up here, but this is gonna be probably one of the next like spring summer projects that I cast on. This is gonna be my Farnham tee by the Knit Pearl Girl, and it's on my make 9, so I like really want to get it cast on soon, maybe once I finish another project off my get another project off my needle, something like that. But all of this yarn had been like on my bottom cubby, and it was like covered up for so long I forgot I had some of these skeins. So another great reason to like refresh and reorganize your stash. Okay, there also comes a point in like every reorganization process where you're probably gonna get overwhelmed. That's the state that I'm in now. I have not even pulled everything out of my shelves yet, and I'm like, I don't have room. I don't know what to do with all of this yarn, and I just need to remind myself like, it all came out of the cubbies, it'll all go back into the cubbies, it's okay. This may be a good time to talk about like how you can reorganize your cubbies or how you can organize your yarn in general. There are like several different categories that people use to organize their yarn. For example, I've seen people organize their yarn by color. I think this is a really fun way to organize yarn, especially if you have a smaller stash. I think with a stash the size of mine, doing it by color would not be super helpful for me in trying to find skeins if I'm looking for like a specific skein or a specific sweater quantity. Another way that you can organize yarn is by weight. So for example, putting all your fingering weight together, your DK weight, etc., etc. I have not really done that. Probably the closest I've gotten is I do have a separate cubby for all of my like fuzzy yarn, so mohair and surrey, which is mostly lace weight, but to be honest, there is some like thicker fuzzy yarn in there as well. Another way you can organize yarn is by project. So I definitely like to keep all of my sweater quantities together, sort of. If I have a sweater quantity that's like fingering weight plus a mohair or like plus a fuzzy yarn, sometimes, depending on how I feel really, I'll keep the yarns together, or sometimes I'll put the fuzzy yarn in the cubby with all of the other fuzzy yarns. Kind of just depends on the mood I'm in and how I'm feeling. But I do like to organize by project, just so that I can see like, okay, here's all the sweaters that I have in my queue. Sometimes I'll do like a sweater quantity cubby that's like project plans 100% finalized, not changing. And then I'll do like sweater quantities that maybe I don't have a project in mind for, or it's a loose plan and it might change at some point. A couple other ways that you could organize your yarn is by fiber type. If you've got multiple different fiber types, this might work for you. Or another way is by brand or by dyer. If you have a lot of like knit picks, sock yarn, maybe put all of that together. If you've got a lot of Explorer knits and fibers, maybe you want all of that yarn together in one cubby, something like that. The other thing to keep in mind is that like there are really no rules with how you organize your yarn stash. You can do a combination of all of these. You can come up with your own category that only you really know and really makes sense to you. You can change it up every single time you want to reorganize your yarn stash. There are no rules with how you organize it, and you can be as creative as you want. Just do what makes sense for you. Okay, I need to like maybe take a little break. I don't know. I feel like I need to get everything out, and then I can start like moving stuff around and figuring out what categories I want to put stuff back in. Okay, I've had a tiny wallow thinking about what did I do, what have I done, this is too much work, and I think I'm ready to continue. So I kind of want to try to see if I can make like one full cubby of fingering weight sweater quantities. I don't know if I have enough. Most of my sweater quantities are DK, but if I have enough to make, don't growl at me. If I have enough to make like one full cubby of just fingering weight, I might do that. Rocky's growling at me. Come here, you can come over here. Oh gosh. You're falling. Okay. I know. Need some love? Wait. Okay. Oh, okay. Don't drop. Don't drop. Don't drop. Some of these I know I need to show you because like I'm obsessed with them. For example, this whole palette from the Sorella Yarn Fall Tonals. I got these like 2 years ago, and I know, well, I've had like multiple colorwork sweaters in mind, and I really want to use it. Every time I pull it out, I'm like, it's gorgeous. I want to use it, and then it always gets put on the back burner. Okay, I'm feeling a little bit better now. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 out of the 8 cubbies full. I can show you. And I've got a decent amount of the yarn off the bed. There we go. What I need to go through next are my single skeins and my 2 skein quantities. I'm gonna put those in the last 2 cubbies, I think. One of the cubbies may be kind of like a catch-all because not everything is fitting in the categories that I'm trying to do, but we're getting close. So that's what I'm gonna do next, is like go through my 1 and 2 skeins quantities and go from there. Taylor Swift yarn to go with my blankets. Okay, so I've got everything laid out. The like 2 skein quantities I'm good with keeping for now. The single skeins that I have is like a weird assortment. I have a bunch of fingering weight ones. I've got some DK single skeins, and I've got some worsted single skeins. And it's like, I've had these for years. I really like the colorways, but like, what am I actually gonna do with worsted weight single skeins? I don't really know. I haven't really come up with an idea. Maybe they can be used in like a hat. Maybe they can be used in a blanket eventually. I don't know, it's something that I haven't really fully thought through yet. And I just keep keeping them in my stash. Okay, I think I'm done. Are you ready to see it? Okay, so I'm really happy with it. I finally got my scarf from Kerry Woolen Mills draped over. I may need to give it a quick steam so that it lays flat, but that was my plan for it when I bought it, was to use it as some decoration. So I'm excited about it. Then we've got our summer yarn cubby, which you already knew about. This is something new that I'm gonna do for myself and use this cubby as like a catch-all, kind of like an inbox, anything that I'm like working on, like swatch-wise for upcoming projects. I'm gonna see how this goes. I've never had like an inbox cubby like this. And these skeins that are already in here didn't fit where I wanted them to go. So that's what that is. Okay, the next level down, these are all DK sweater quantities, kind of in sort of a little rainbow order. These are 2 skein quantities and single skeins. This is all my fluffy yarn. This cubby I actually did not pull out, I just left it where it was. I knew all of my fluffy yarn was staying, so I figured I really didn't need to pull that out. So that's that. This is also DK, no. This is my fingering weight cubby, so all of this is fingering weight yarn. And then down here on the left, these are worsted weight and DK weight tweed and a non-superwash and an alpaca. All DK and worsted weight. And then lastly, I decided to put my books and magazines down here, as well as my single skeins of bulky and worsted weight. So this is kind of an extra cubby. Like, if my yarn stash gets built up again and I need the space, I can always move the books somewhere else. But I kind of want to keep them all together with all of my yarn. So that's what the cubbies look like. I'm really happy with it. And let me show you also, dun dun dun. Okay, so now my 2 bags that were both kind of like half full are overflowing with Destash yarn. And I have, tripod, move. Now I have 4 clear bags full of yarn. So I can give you a sneak peek. This is one of the new ones. I wanted to put cakes in here. Some of these are full skeins. Some of these are pretty much full skeins, maybe like 80 to 90 grams. Some full skeins that correspond, and my mini skeins, and my Taylor Swift yarn is all in here for the blanket that I eventually want to make. This one back here is all of my scrap yarns. Anything that's like enough to do something scrappy with, I've put in there. And then the bottom 2 are just skeins that I know I want to keep, that I don't really want to do anything with right now, but I want them out of my cubbies. And then these I'm going to try and destash. this is a sweater quantity for a sweater. I just really don't like these balls in my cubbies because they're really like, they're annoying. They're not the right shape and size and they don't fit with all of the skeins. So I need to figure out where those are gonna go, but they're not gonna go in the cubbies. Hi, future Leslie here. There's one more thing that I wanted to talk to you about in regards to stash organization that I totally forgot to mention yesterday because I was overwhelmed with reorganizing my stash. The other piece that I wanted to talk about is like a digital yarn inventory. I personally keep a digital yarn inventory on a Google Sheet. I have talked about this before, my like yarn tracker. There are other ways that you can do this though, through Ravelry, through a Notion template. That is not something that I have dug into yet, but I have seen several people on Instagram who use Notion to track their stash digitally. And one of the things that I really like about having, you know, all of my yarn cataloged in a spreadsheet is that, number one, I can like see the analytics of it. I can see how many skeins I have, you know, what the makeup of them is. If I know I have a sweater quantity, I can see exactly how many yards, how many grams I have in that sweater quantity. And it really helps me to project plan. For me, I am both visual as well as very analytical. So being able to see everything in my stash, the colors and the full sweater quantity, is really important to me for like inspiration and creativity. But then if I'm like looking at yarn in my stash and I'm like, okay, do I have enough of it? Do I have enough skeins to actually knit up this project that I want to knit it up in? That's when I'll go to my spreadsheet that's online and I can compare the yardage. And so having that information very like readily at hand is really nice in my spreadsheet. So the spreadsheet that I use is the yarn inventory tracker. It was created by Ashley, who is at Ben Knitter on Instagram. I will link the spreadsheet in the description box down below because you can, from the link, you can make a copy and start filling it out all on your own. I will say that filling it out at first, especially if you've got a lot of skeins and a large stash, can be a little bit daunting. I originally did this in the week between Christmas and New Year's, not last year but the year before, and so I had like all that free time. I could pull everything out, I could, you know, type it all in, and then I could like reorganize it, put it back in my stash the way I wanted to. So just know, you know, take it section by section, step by step, but it is a really nice way. And like having that inventory online really complements the organization of your actual yarn stash. And I just wanted to make sure I talked about that with you in this video as well. Alright, if you've got any questions about that, let me know. I've got another video about my yarn stash that I did earlier this year on updating you about my yarn stash where I talked more about the inventory spreadsheet, so I will link that here as well. Okay, back to yesterday. Okay, so that's it. That was, wow, that was a process. I mean, when you have almost 500 skeins of yarn, you know that it's going to take a while and be a little bit overwhelming. Although once I get through this destash, you know, my yarn stash number of skeins is going to severely drop, which I'm actually really happy about. The interesting thing about some of these destash skeins, and again, if you want more info on like how to destash, check out the first video in this series. But one of the reasons I talked about as to like why someone might want to destash is like you might have bought the yarn a long time ago, had a project plan for it, but you haven't gotten to it yet and you don't know when you're gonna get to it. And that's the spot where I'm really at with some of these skeins. Some of them I bought and I did have project plans for, and I kind of still do, but like they're so far back in my queue that at this point they're just taking up space. And like project plans for me evolve very quickly. Like something that I'm interested in right now, I may not be interested in like 6 months from now. And that's kind of how some of these skeins are. Like, my plans evolved. I wasn't really interested, or I'm not really interested in making that project anymore, and so it really is just time to let them go. I'm looking at them now. I mean, it's kind of sad to see some of these skeins go, but I'm like really happy with all of the skeins that are in my stash right now, in my cubbies, and that's the place that I really want to get to. Like, I'm looking to have a very intentional yarn stash, something that I know I'm going to love, something that is very personal to me. It's like all of my favorite skeins, something that inspires me every time I look at it, anytime I pull out a sweater quantity or a single skein. Like, I just want that to spark joy. If you're a KonMari fan, that was the word I was looking for, fan, something that sparks joy. And my whole yarn stash right now, at least, sparks joy. I kind of just wanted to get closer so you can get a better look at it behind me. I'm just really happy with where it's at right now. And yes, I do have more yarn that I have purchased that has not come in yet. And so we'll see how that kind of all fits in and plays with the space that I have created here, and like the little crevices in each of the cubbies. There's a little bit of room in each of them, so we'll see how that factors in. And of course, as I finish some of my whips that are on the needles now, I'll be starting new whips, and yarn will be coming out of my yarn stash. You know the cycle that it all goes through. At this point, this video is over. The organization is done. The next and last video in this Spring Cleaning Your Yarn Stash series, we are going to talk about how to intentionally build a yarn stash. And I'm really gonna go over like how to have a plan for yarn purchases. Like, if you know you want to buy a sweater quantity worth of yarn, what is a sweater quantity to you? Maybe you're looking to buy yarn in a pre-order and you don't know how many skeins to buy. That's really what we're going to break down and talk through in next week's, in the next video. So I hope you'll come back and check that one out as well. Again, if you're new here, thank you so much for watching and for sticking around till the end. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. I post weekly podcast episodes where I talk through my finished objects, works in progress, acquisitions, all of the above. And don't forget to go follow me over on Instagram at KnitCalifornia. All right, that's it. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you, and I will see you on the next one. Bye!